Welcome to the Small Church Podcast, the podcast for church leaders who want to make a difference in their communities. We're your hosts, Tony Marr and Bruce Montgomery, and we're excited to be with you today. On this podcast, we'll be discussing the latest trends, strategies, and ideas for effective leadership in small-sized churches. So whether you're a pastor, a ministry leader, or a volunteer, this podcast is for you. Each week, we'll bring you interviews with experienced church leaders who have valuable insights to share. We'll also explore topics like team building, community outreach, spiritual growth, and much more. So if you're looking for practical advice and inspiration to help you lead your church with excellence, you've come to the right place. The Small Church Podcast is brought to you by Higher Ministries. Higher Ministries is an organization that exists to help Christian leaders in the churches they serve through coaching and consulting, all for little or no cost. For more information on Higher Ministries or to find out more about the Small Church Podcast, please visit higherministries.com. Thanks for tuning into this week's edition of the Small Church Podcast. Welcome back to the Small Church Podcast. We're excited to have you back for our second week of our conversation with Jamin Rathbun. Jamin, last week was so great that we decided to hold you over for another week.
Yes, which I'm grateful for. Man, the conversation just flew by. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked down at our counter and saw that we were at like an hour and 10 minutes. And I said, oh, wow, this is not a 1-episode deal. This is a 2-episode deal. And so we're back again to continue that conversation. And so without any further ado, we bring you part 2 of our conversation with our special guest, Jamin Rathbun, on how to live and love single. Thursday appears to be lawn mowing day.
Lawn mowing day, I heard that too. Yeah. Anyway.
Jamin, there is a inner desire, one of the greatest desires in all of us, to be known and to be loved.
Yeah.
Society understands this and puts things in place for singles. You don't see a lot of married people in the club on Tuesday night. Yeah. People have this innate desire that we need companionship, we need community. So how does the church that has an active, powerful singles ministry, adult singles ministry, balance the in-reach, meeting the needs of those that are there and creating the community there, and outreach being a place to reach those singles who are outside of the church?
Yeah, which I don't know that I can speak to that a lot. I think maybe the way I would think about that, we haven't been intentional in that regard, other than just creating an alternative where your connection doesn't feel like an unhealthy coping mechanism to your pain, but it's a real transformative solution to be in healthy community. You know, what you said, I think, is profound, and I don't remember where I heard this first, but there was this idea that in order to feel fully loved, you have to be fully known, right? If people don't really know you, if you're putting up a front or you're pretending or you're in these kind of false communities, people can act loving toward you, and a church might even express some real care for you, but there's something in you that says, well, if they really knew what I was like or what I was struggling with or what I had done, they would not act loving toward me. And so you can't really receive that love. And there's something, I think, in communities like this, and recovery ministries, I think, are like this too, where you just, here's who I really am. Yeah. And there's, again, that's what the gospel just continues to say time and time again. It's not your righteousness, right? Your righteousness is just filthy rags, right? It doesn't even come close. I came for the sick. I came for the lost, right? All that stuff. And so to be in community where that is an option, people find that's so much better than the alternative of just self-medicating in whatever way you do, alcohol or pornography or whatever the temptation is. Eating is my, right? Gluttony is what I struggle with. Sloth, right? Those are my besetting sins that I'm always resisting, and it helps to be in community with other people. Just that accountability and encouragement ongoing is a big help and is a better, for anybody who's legitimately responding to the Spirit, right? Because all of us get an invitation and we're seeking, right, the promises that we'll find. And I think for people who make that decision to go, okay, I'm tired of this path. This is not leading to fulfillment or healing or peace. This isn't leading to a place where at the end of the day I feel good about myself. I don't feel near to God when I'm doing this. Maybe I want something else, and that's, maybe part of what we do. Again, not exactly intentionally, but I think it's part of how that works out is, well, I heard about this single group. I saw these pictures on Facebook of this group of people that seem to be having so much legitimate fun. And when my friend needed help moving, like 12 guys showed up. And when the widow that lives next door, when their roof blew off in the storm, 3 guys showed up and fixed it. And, I kind of want that kind of community. I want to be in a place where people care about me that way. And maybe, are invited and drawn in, which is just as applicable to the church as it is to a single
Absolutely.
group. Yeah, man, their church really shows up when they need help and when they need care and when they're hurting. And then when I'm hurting and I need help and I need care, I might call that church because it sure seems like those are loving, caring people. Yeah, so, something like that.
You kind of touched a little bit on this just a second ago. It was a great segue into my next question that I have for you. One of the things that I just don't understand in being a 45-year-old man, that as I look at my kids and the kids that I coach in basketball, is we've seen our community shift in the last 15 years to where so much of community, what is defined as community, I don't fully understand or embrace how it's community, is taking place on a little device that they hold in their hands. And the face-to-face conversations don't happen anymore. I'm amazed at looking at my daughter with her boyfriend that they don't talk. They text, and I don't understand how this is community, and yet they would completely say we're connected. This is community. We've got great friendships. We've got great relationships, and I tell my son all the time, invite your friends over. Go to the movies with them. Go hang out at the mall. Get together on a court and play ball instead of just sitting on the couch typing to them in group chats. But yet they think that is community and they're connected. And the church has slowly started to embrace this with online services and online community groups where you don't ever have to leave. And then we had our 2 years in the pandemic where we said it's okay for you to experience community through a television or through a computer monitor. That's perfectly fine. That's okay. How do you embrace that within your ministry when so many of a younger generation that's where they find community is online and through social apps and media, and yet I still believe there's a place for face-to-face physical contact with people. How do you embrace that and incorporate that into what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would make the case that there is some sense of intimacy and connection that you can do online. I've got a couple friends now who I only know from Facebook. They were friends of friends, and we just were always commenting around the same posts. And over time, I just thought, man, that guy's clever and he's funny and he just seems godly and all the good stuff. And so I just send a little message, which is a little awkward, right? I don't know how old I was, mid-40s maybe. And I send another dude a message that I don't know. I'm like, hey, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to invite you into my friend circle because I just like who you are, right? I'm not hitting on you. I just kind of want to maybe connect a little bit more. And I've got a couple friends like that, and they're good friends. And in some seasons where I've been struggling or where they've been struggling, we've legitimately cared for and encouraged and helped one another, right, through some difficult spots. However, that isn't the fullest thing, I think. Kind of like when I came back to Grace Fellowship, I was content, and I think it was appropriate for me to not work in the church for a season. I just needed to heal and recover and just worship myself, and there was some good in that. But in order to really maybe move forward or maybe just be aware of God at work or see the opportunity that I had to do good work, you've got to be connected in person and relationally. You can't do work, right, over the phone. You have to go. Part of my ministry at Grace is pastoral care, and so it's hospital visits and home visits, end-of-life things, counseling appointments, in-person care. And I can text, and sometimes I will, hey, how's it going? How's Ellis doing? Whatever that is. It's okay, but there's something to that connection if you're looking outside yourself, and I'm not saying it's exactly selfish, again, sometimes when you're recovering from something difficult, right, I want to honor how hard that is. It is a devastating thing, divorce.
Yeah.
For some people more than others. And so to have a season in which you just heal and rest, where you just receive care, totally fine. Not going to fault anybody for that. But I would invite you at some point to really experience freedom, to really heal, to really be aware of how God is working. You got to connect.
You got to re-engage.
You just got to do that. And I don't think you can do that fully over the phone.
Yeah.
Not fully. Now, I say this too, and this is maybe a help for even a smaller church who's trying to do something. Social media, like Facebook, really allows you to have big church tools. We manage almost everything for our single adult group on Facebook. Our events and our primary communication. We do a weekly email too. Again, our age range is late 20s to mid 80s, and the folks in their mid 80s aren't as social media savvy. They would rather get an email every week, and so we kind of communicate a couple ways. But to leverage some of the benefits of social media to organize events and have people RSVP, that's definitely been a help, and it helps us kind of communicate clearly to a broad group and let them know what's going on. So it's a tool that we can use, but I think if your interaction is online only, I guarantee you there is a fuller, richer relational and church experience for you in person. For sure.
Good.
Yeah, for sure.
Bruce, I want to pull you into this conversation really quick. You lead the seniors ministry at your church.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure in that you have a lot of single people in your seniors ministry, widows, widowers. How has the conversation with Jamin so far, has that piqued any thoughts, any ideas from you in relation to how you're working with some of the singles in your congregation?
We do a lot of events because they're seniors, but the other part is I try to do the touch things. Mm-hmm. I prefer not to be on the computer connecting with somebody, but I taught interpersonal communication at Milligan University, and I just there's something for touch, and I go around every Sunday morning. I'll walk the sanctuary as people are coming in. I'll hug them, I'll touch them, I'll share life with them. And I really think that the scripture in 2 Corinthians about no more masks, removing the veil. Mm-hmm. I wish all churches could come in and I could take the mask off, and I don't have to worry. I can say something that may offend you, and okay, we can deal with that. And be honest with it instead of having to hide it. I think a lot of the problems we have is we are hiding this kind of garbage here. We don't want anybody to find it. And if we get too close, they're going to find it. And so maybe it's better to go over here and do this. And it always amazes me to the students I've met and young people I've met who have been more than willing to share their life and everything in their life and self-disclose. And they don't even know who the person is. They've got a pseudonym out there. I'll just share years ago. When I first came to Milligan, my nephew came to Milligan, and he came in and says, "Uncle Bruce, I just met these two beautiful women, and I said, where did you meet them? Oh, on Facebook or online? And I said, how do you know they're beautiful? Well, they told me they were. And I said, what did you tell them about yourself? I told them I was a starting tailback for the football team at Milligan, which they've not had since 1958. And I said, what makes you think that they're telling you the truth? And I really like to see genuine relationships where people come and talk, and we try to create those. I'll create them in moments before church, after church, when I can run up to them and see them and just personally show them that I care about them. And then, but also moments where in groups we can share that. And that's I've been writing several things down, like vulnerable and self-disclosure and community, and you've been touching on all that, but I really think church is supposed to be community and relationships and sharing with people. And I could share, I just failed this test, and somebody will come back. Most of them won't come up to you and say, "Well, I failed it too," but be transparent enough to share with them and share and touch people, and that worked for me in any age group. I was a campus minister at Bowling Green State University for 11 years, and we grew from 8 to 80 to 280 to more, and we were the huggingest group on campus. We thought that touch, relationships, honesty, openness, and just broke it down. And I try to do that with our seniors, to break down things with them. So if there's something that's really bothering them or they're concerned about, or just to make sure they know that I accept you as who you are. And if you don't like that, that's your problem. But I'm not going to, put fences up because you said this or this to me. And I think that genuine community is what you're talking about, and all of those is something that we should all aspire to as a church, and we shouldn't have requirements that we have to be clean before you can talk to me. You can have problems, and they can be serious problems. I've had people tell me serious things, and I still love them, and I make sure they know that I love them. Yeah. And part of my way of doing that is touch.
Yeah. I think that in your ministry, you've got a wide range of people that you're working with. You've got the 28-year-old who's never been in a relationship. You've got the 45-year-old who's just gone through a heartbreaking divorce. You've got the 72-year-old who just lost their spouse of 50 years. But the root of it all, a church that I worked with, that I started several years ago, our slogan was know and be known, love and be loved. Yeah. And I think that is the root of it, that regardless of your circumstance, regardless of whether you've never been in a meaningful relationship, you've just suffered what feels like a death through the heartbreak and of divorce, or you've just lost a spouse, or you're happily married for 30 years. We all have this deep desire to know and be known and to love and be loved. And as a church, our belief, our faith is that comes through Christ. That comes through being known by the one who created us, being loved by the one who laid down his life for us. And so while the methods might be specific to the ministry, the message is universal. Mm-hmm. And how do you incorporate, when the message is the same, but yet the methods are so different, how do you go about incorporating your singles into the broader Christian community?
Well, I think, let me chase another thought real quick, and I'll circle back to this, because part of this, some of what we do is uniquely applicable, but like Bruce was just saying, maybe also applicable to other communities and even the church in general. I think one of the things, kind of baby steps. What was that movie? Baby steps towards the elevator. What about Bob?
What about Bob?
What about Bob? Baby steps towards the elevator. He's just trying to.
We've brought out What About Bob. We've brought up Field of Dreams today.
I will bring up a Disney movie before we're done. I have 9 children. I have so many kids movies in my brain. But yeah, one of the things I think about is in our community, when we first gathered and we didn't know what we were doing exactly. We're just going to gather. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we did right away was you just go, okay, well, let's get to know one another, right? And I think, those early days when there's just, 6 of us, we just kind of went around a circle quick and just, I'm a divorcee and I've been divorced this long and I have these kids or whatever we did. But I think, pretty quick, we just incorporated that as part of our weekly gathering was a get to know you question. And I think kind of like Bruce was saying, and it may have been you that I first heard that known and loved quote from back in the day, but something in that where, okay, well, being fully transparent is a really big risk. And so we're just going to carve out at the beginning of our meeting about 15 minutes just to hang out and talk a little bit. And then we're going to start our group time with a get to know you question. And some of those are lighthearted. It's what's your favorite superhero and favorite dessert and favorite Christmas memory, whatever. And some of those are maybe a little more serious as we kind of go around the horn there. But all of that is just kind of baby steps to being known. Just more and more, we get to know one another, and we laugh and build a little intimacy and test the waters of that a little bit. And then over time, you really do build trust. And it seems a little silly that, get to know you questions about your favorite colors and desserts and everywhere leads that way, but it does seem like that's true.
Absolutely.
To some degree. And I think it just lets people test those waters of being known in that way. And then you complement that just, again, in our community. And sometimes I think about this way. On occasion, when you're in church life and people are trying to figure out what their gifts are and what the work is for them to do, they may look at pastors or podcasters or worship leaders or whatever and say, well, you're so good at that. And part of that is, well, it's really easy when you're on stage every week.
Right.
It takes no effort, right? It's expected of you, and there's no risk to doing that. And I think, just kind of continuing to just invite people in, talk less about, and maybe that's the wrong way, talk more about you mentioned identity earlier, Psalm 139, right? You knit me together in my mother's womb. You've hemmed me in behind and before, right? You know every word before it's on my tongue. It's all that stuff. Every day was ordained before one of them came to be. I mean, just all that stuff is so identity grounding, right? I'm just a created, beloved child of God, full stop, from the beginning, right? And there's something in that where you can just invite people into that and then say, and there's unique work created already in advance for you to do. And what you've gone through is part of the preparation for that. And that just invites people to not see, it's, I forget the passage, 2 Peter 3, 1 Peter 3, part of where it's talking about Christ humbling himself and being obedient even unto death, even to death on the cross. But then it says he scorned the shame of it. What was intended to shame him, he just disregarded the shame part, right? And there's what a promise there is in that, to take the stuff that we might count as our greatest shame, but see it in the context of how God has been preparing, that he's going to use it all for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose, and just keep inviting people into that. Again, baby steps. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite superhero? What are your kids' names? But then more and more over time, as you build trust, hey, how is God equipping you? What are you passionate about? And what are you good at? And what do you have opportunity to do? And to begin to rest in that idea that God hasn't missed any of this, right? And that we need to offer it to him so that it can be redeemed and so that good things can come out of it. And there's something there. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So other than your story of meeting your now bride in your singles ministry, tell us some stories of things that we can celebrate, things that a listener would say, wow, that's really amazing what God has done in that ministry and through that ministry.
Wow. I honestly would not know how to answer that. I would just encourage people, again, that if you have a heart for this community, without question, it is good work to do. What's the promise? The fields are ripe, the workers are few, right? All that. That we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. There's something about that. Small church, big church, whatever. Just to step into that too. And trusting that often the people who would have a heart for this ministry are people, where this is a part of their history. This has been a critical piece of my own recovery and healing. I think I refer sometimes to these last 11 years, right? I think 2012 is when stuff started to get hard in my marriage. And I refer to these years as the most grace-revealing, faith-building years of my life. And that's the invitation, is just trust God and just, right, step in the way, right? That's the promise, is there's this voice that whispers to us which way to go. And, that's a good father, whispering to his daughter or his son, Jamin, don't go that way, bro. He calls me dude sometimes, dude. Don't go that way, right? Go this way instead. This is a better way for you to go. And that might be my encouragement, is that, what's Paul say, right? To die is gain, to live is Christ. I mean, that has been my reality more in these last 11 years than at any other time in my life, with lots of fruitful entrepreneurship and ministry and maybe praise or something, right? This work feels more eternal to me, and that's a good thing, right? Stuff that doesn't burn up, get destroyed. Something like that seems good. Lots to celebrate, man. My kids, God's been faithful in a season of, again, confess my own unfaithfulness and my own poor stewardship in a ton of categories. But now looking back, I've got 3 kids married, got a couple grandkids, couple more grandkids on the way, more children who are just thriving, growing up, adults that I'm very proud of and love very much, and great relationships, and just some great stuff to celebrate. And part of the story, especially of divorce, but this can be true of long-time singles as well. Yeah, it's just this concern that the future is not going to be good. That what has happened here, that my mistakes, right, circling back, Bruce, to some of the regrets we were talking about earlier, that the mistakes I've made are just going to wound my children in some way that just can't be redeemed. They're not going to recover, and it's my fault. And, I think I would say more than anything else, that's the good that I would point to, is just with everything that's happened, God has sustained not only me, but my family. In no exaggeration, in miraculous ways, where we've just had what we needed. And, one story in particular, I had a daughter who, because of my ex-wife's struggles in her 40s, who used to, when she was a little girl, draw pictures of houses with like 12 individual toilets in the foyer, because she wanted to have 10 kids and she wanted everybody to have their own toilet, and just cute little things that little girls do as they dream about being a mom someday. And we've got a big family. She just assumed she'd have a big family too. And when all of this shook out in my marriage, she was a late teenager, and some of this just instilled a fear in her that, what if this is genetic, and what if when I turn 40, all of these insecurities rise up in me and these temptations, and what if I'm not able to fend them off? And so she was almost afraid to imagine being married and having kids again. And that's one of my daughters who now has a grandson and is married to a great guy. And so that's just one of the many, many ways, that God has made a way and brought healing and, a good vision of the future, and lots of good work to do. And so tons to celebrate, man. God's been a good father to my family for sure.
And you've been a great father to your kids as well.
Oof, well, you don't see all the, behind the scenes.
So I think the real question now that I have for you is, what is your favorite color, and who is your favorite superhero?
Favorite color? Anybody that knows me knows that I wear khaki shorts and flip-flops pretty much 363 days out of the year. Almost always wear gray or blue. So if I was going to say favorite color, I would probably say gray, which seems so sullen and cloudy. I'm actually a pretty bright countenance, I like to think. But
Counting Crows.
Counting Crows? What's that reference?
Mr. Jones.
Oh, Mr. Jones, yes, of course.
Gray's my favorite color.
Yes, gray's my favorite color. So I would say gray. Now, what was part 2 of that question? Color?
Favorite superhero.
Favorite superhero. I have to go Captain America. There's something about him that just seems noble and good. That's just kind of his core identity. So I'm just going to be loyal and do what's right no matter what. And I love that. I think Spider-Man's maybe a second close behind. There's something in him, that idea, which is a biblical principle, right? In Luke 12 and other places, that those who have been given much is expected. And that's kind of the formation of the Spider-Man story, as his uncle says to him, right? That how does he phrase it in the movie?
Great power comes great responsibility.
Thank you. Yes, Robert comes through with a Spider-Man quote. Our third movie reference. Let's see if we can.
Is this a church leadership podcast or a pop culture?
It's a pop culture, baby. Podcast. So Captain America #1, and Spider-Man would be a number 2 behind him. Yeah.
All right, so you have an audience of small church leaders that are listening to you right now. What bit of advice would you give them? Some of them right now sitting alone in an office that are struggling with where God has them, with what's going on. Some of them are maybe listening as they're running on a track and wondering what the next steps are for them in their church. They've been intrigued by what we've heard and by what they've heard us discuss today, by your story and what you're doing, and that you have a captive audience listening, waiting to hear what Jamin Rathbun wants to say to them in closing.
Yeah, it's too much pressure. How could I possibly summarize into a single statement? I mean, it seems so, just churchy and biblical, but it's just... God is good. I think I don't have a better word to use than successes, but let's just say the work that I'm most proud of as I look back is all the result of just drawing near to God, just getting in His Word, digging deep, looking for promises that I could cling to, hope, right? That kind of stuff. Because all of that stuff just grounds you in the truth in a way that when those temptations come, you're just better equipped to resist and make, the obedient choice instead. And so, I don't know that I have better advice than that. It's just God's Word is an authority over our emotions and experiences and all of it. It's true. It's truer than how we feel. And so if we're insecure or if we're tired or whatever, God's Word is just higher. It's truer than all of that. And I don't know that I'd give a better encouragement. Now, I should also say, if there's a pastor out there running on a track, I cannot relate to you. As I said, my core sins are gluttony and sloth. And, I'm back in the gym this week. Tony sets the bar high. You guys can't see him, but sometimes I call him Pectoral Man. He sets the bar high and has done a great job, over the years doing that. So I'm trying to follow his lead and steward my physical health as well. But that's, again, it seems tried, and I hope this doesn't seem insincere because it's the churchy answer. But I honestly believe that, what's the promise? Lamentations 3:23, I just love. But for the Lord's great love, we would be consumed. There are new mercies every morning. Every morning. Get a do-over every day. And that's a good word. So, we fail, we do our best, we make our way, we do the best we can, and we, all of that. But God is faithful. And just as best as you can, lean in to your identity in Him, and try to listen for that still small voice, and being in the Word really, really helps. Yeah.
Jamin, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, they wanted to pick up a copy of your book, how can they do that?
There is no good way. I don't have an author platform or anything. That's some work that I've been doing, and maybe we'll try to make available more broadly soon. I would say right now, if you have questions or would like to kick something around, one of my favorite things to do is like what really Tony and my friendship has been built on, is just sitting down over a meal and just thinking out loud about stuff that's going on. There's something that's really helpful about doing that and things like this. I could do this all the time, just these conversations about life and ministry and about how good God is are just always energizing for me. But I would say you could just contact me through the church's website. Which is GFC Now. Is that okay if I promote that?
Absolutely.
That's good. GFC Now. I should have asked before I said it, but I'm on the staff page, just email me there. My name is Jamin, Jamin, which is an unusual name. It's like Benjamin, without the Ben. It's just Jamin Rathbun, and my email address is on there. But I would love to encourage others who have a heart to do some of this work too. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's about all the time that we've got for today. I want to thank Jamin. We knew that Jamin coming in was going to be a great time. No questions about that. So much wisdom that you have imparted to me over the years. Many things that I have then passed on to other people over the years have come from you. A huge, huge impact in my life over the last 20 years, and I know so many other people. So we want to thank Jamin again. If you would like to reach out to Jamin, find out more about what he's doing and how you can begin a ministry to single adults in your church, you can find him at gfcnow.org.
.com.
gfcnow.com. On behalf of Bruce Montgomery and Robert Kell, I am Tony Marr. We want to thank you for listening in. Be sure to tune in next week to our new edition of the Small Church Podcast. Have a great week.
Awesome. Love you, dude. Thank you.